Hello from the Crystal Coast. This is Pastor Kevin, and it's Thursday, August the 12th. And today I wanted to share a passage with you from Mark chapter 6. I was talking with a group of guys recently, and we were looking at this account that Mark has of Jesus feeding the 5,000. And I want to just highlight a few observations and encourage you from this passage. So here's how he puts it. He probably got it, by the way, from Peter. Beginning verse 30 of Mark chapter 6. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a desolate place by themselves. Now, many saw them going and recognized them, and they ran there on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd. He had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" He said to them, "Well, how many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they had found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups by hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, he said a blessing, he broke the loaves, gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all. And they all ate and were satisfied. They took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of fish. Those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. So just a couple observations from this that I thought were very informative and very helpful and actually encouraging. The first one is this: rest can actually be as spiritual as work. These guys had been out, they had been working, they had been serving, they had been engaged in ministry, telling people about Jesus. And when they came back, Jesus said, "You guys are," and things were so busy. I mean, there wasn't any let up. People were constantly coming and coming and coming, and Jesus said, "Yeah, you guys need a break. Rest." At that particular point was just as spiritual as work. The key here is for us to actually find balance in our lives. It's an easy thing to say, "I'm going to live a balanced life." It's a very difficult thing to achieve. That's the first observation. Here's the second. I don't want you to miss the connection between what the disciples had just done. Jesus had sent them out. They had just been going out in that area through that region, telling other people about Jesus. And now, Mark says, a great crowd had gathered. There was a connection between what the 12 had been doing and this great crowd that had been gathered. A lot of times we measure things that once we measure them, there's actually nothing we can do about impacting. For instance, we measure attendance on Sunday morning, but by the time we measure it, there's not actually anything that we can do to impact the attendance that we've measured. What we can do to impact that attendance, to see us being effective and reaching out and reaching more people, is to make sure that we're out in the community sharing the good news about Jesus, just like the 12 were doing here. It was that activity that generated this great crowd that we read about in Mark chapter 6. So, hey, let's stay busy. Let's get after it. It's sharing the good news about Jesus in our community. Here's the third thing that I noticed about this passage. It was constraints that actually drove creativity. When they went to Jesus and said, "Hey, Jesus, it's late. You need to send these people away so they can go buy something to eat." Jesus said, "Well, what do you got? Go and see." Apparently, they didn't even know what kind of resources they had. It was the constraint of knowing here's what the need is that actually drove them to determine here's what we've got that we can use. Constraints drive creativity. So here's the encouragement. How about let's give God what we have, and then let's watch what he does with what we give him. Here's a fourth observation, and it's that leadership development requires increased responsibilities. It's interesting that Jesus actually used the 12 as the agents through which this miracle was accomplished. They were the ones that brought the resources to Jesus. They were the ones that he handed the resources out to, that distributed them out to this large crowd. They were the ones that picked up the leftovers, that knew what was going on. He gave them increased responsibilities. See, they wanted to push that responsibility off to somebody else. Jesus, you need to tell these people to get out of here and go buy some food. Jesus said, no, I'm going to give that responsibility to you. He's growing their leadership. Give people an opportunity to use the gifts that God has given them and watch them grow in leveraging their influence and growing in their leadership abilities. And then here's a final observation, and this one maybe is a more personal one. If you want to grow in your faith, and I talk to people regularly who will say in one way or another, man, I really want to grow in my faith. If you really want to grow in your faith, how about get busy serving others? Because that's exactly what was happening here in this passage. This account in Mark is more about the disciples' faith and how they are growing in their faith than anybody else, because the disciples knew better than anybody else that day what was going on. The fact that here's this little lunch, these little 5 loaves, and these 2 fish, and then Jesus feeds 5,000 men, not even counting the women and the children, and then there's leftovers. There's actually more left over afterwards than there was to begin with. If you want to grow in your faith, get involved serving others. So here's my question of the day for you. When did you sense that you were growing the most in your faith? What season were you in? What was going on in your life where you really recognized, man, I can see the character of Jesus being developed in me? When was that for you? I'd love to hear from you. Let me pray for you today. Father, I just want to thank you so much for the privilege that you have given us of being a part of what you're doing in this world, that we get to serve with you, that we can actually be an agent of seeing you work in somebody else's life. And boy, that's a great privilege. And we're so very thankful for that. Help us to make the most of those opportunities. Help us to be faithful at placing at your disposal what you have given us that you can use to bless other people, to encourage other people, to see other people come to faith in you. And that would be my prayer for us this day, in Jesus' name. Amen. Let me mention just a couple of notes to you here, just by way of announcements. The first is this. We're going to be hosting Tammy Harris. Tammy is actually the founder and the executive director of the Ursus Institute. We're going to be hosting her here on the Crystal Coast Wednesday, August the 25th at 6 p.m. And that's going to take place right in the chapel. The mission of the Ursus Institute is to use research, to collect data, to promote community involvement, to combat human trafficking. She's going to be giving a human trafficking awareness presentation that night. And I don't know if you knew this, I suspect you didn't, but back in 2019, North Carolina ranked 11th among all states in human trafficking cases that were reported. So we were number 11. Awareness is the first step to engagement. We can make a difference to meet this need. Second thing I want to remind you of, this class that we're offering, I'm a Christian Now. It's for kids who have either recently made a decision to believe in and follow Jesus, or they're asking questions about it, and it looks like they may be ready to make that decision themselves. That class is going to be offered beginning August the 22nd. That's a Sunday. It's going to be taking place during the 9 a.m. Bible study hours, so Sunday mornings, beginning August 27th, beginning at 9 a.m. Be a great way to make sure that your child is ready to actually publicly declare their faith in Jesus at our next baptism, which is going to be this beach baptism that we've got scheduled for September the 12th. And then finally, one of the ways that we're reaching out to share the good news about Jesus is by putting on what's being called a back to school bash. It'll take place on Saturday, August the 28th from 2 to 4 p.m. right here in our parking lot. The team, our share team that's putting this together, they've said we're going to need volunteers who will help with setup and tear down, run games, manage the line of children at the 2 inflatables that we're going to have, as well as the dunking booth that I'm sure Joe Bradshaw is going to be in that day, run the cakewalk, and all kinds of other things. They have asked if we would provide baked goods for the cakewalk, drop off school supplies. There's a collection box in the lobby of the Family Life Center. Donate door prizes to give away, like baskets or gift certificates that actually say on them "provided by," and then put the ministry that's providing those, or provided by Cape Carteret Baptist Church. There is a sign-up sheet that's right by the collection box in the lobby. How about this coming Sunday when you come in for Bible study or our worship gathering? How about you drop by there and go ahead and sign up and let them know that you're going to be a part of volunteering for the back to school bash on Saturday, August the 28th. And in the meantime, let's continue to come together and be united in the passionate pursuit of the next generation.